Hey everybody, this is Grace, and I'm doing this video this way today. If I don't get to transfer it later on, I'll just make it public this way. Anyway, the other day I did a whole video about dysfunctional families, and one of the things that I mentioned, well, it got corrupted. Okay, so I'm going to make just real quick, I think I can sum it all up. And that is when a family, say it's a big family, and the parents have a favorite child, and they let that favorite child, which is the youngest, some call the baby of the family, basically, when the other ones get older, old enough to move out, they let that younger child run the household and make decisions, because they say that is that youngest one's house now, and it's their favorite. And if any of the older ones needs to move back in because they're young and haven't quite made it and have a problem and need to move back in, let's say that one has to ask the youngest one for permission to do so. Imagine what that would do to a child. This is a child now, a preteen, that happens to. Imagine what it does to that child for the rest of their lives. How that child will see themselves. Some will say, well, they see themselves in a good way. Is it that they think that they, when they're told that they make the decisions for adults, their adult siblings? That pretty much can sum it up. But to me, that's a really bad parenting. I'm not an expert on parenting. My degrees are in psychology and sociology, but I'm not an expert on parenting. But I cannot, in any way, shape, form, or fashion, see that's going to be good, that would turn out right. Say that a family like this. And I could see that leading to really bad issues for the whole family. Okay. I also want to I have some notes that I wrote quite a while ago, and on different things about dysfunctional families. So I'm going to touch on this subject. I think it's like 3 or 4 different ones. And I have a lot of notes that go starting from childhood onwards, for people born and raised in dysfunctional families. And it can be also in communities or schools, where that's where they get most of the problem. They see most of the dysfunction. Okay, dysfunctional way things work. Okay, so let me get to that. I made a video probably a couple years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago. I'm not sure when. It was about holidays, or holidays, birthdays, something like that. And when the gifts weren't appropriate for whatever age group a child was. Like if it's a 5-year-old child, and the toys, if they've received anything at all for Christmas, say Christmas or the birthday, it was a 5-year-old child, they may have been for, a 10 plus, or however they do it now. And, so that way all of the children can use it. Or they just weren't thinking, the parents. And, all around how holidays could be really sad for children, because of the way their parents are neglectful, or like I said, just not thinking, or their parents are more thinking about themselves and buy the child something they can use, or the other children can use. Instead of personalizing it, they were making it for whatever, like I just said. So I want also just to talk about toys, that in a dysfunctional family, the toys. Now, it can be a situation like that where the toys are maybe, what is it called? Hand-me-downs, like some clothing, they are hand-me-downs. If you have a large family in numbers of siblings, and you get the older child's clothing, shoes, whatever. But the toys can be that way too. And they were, like I was saying, they're not age appropriate, and that is if you got any at all. I remember when I was a child, seriously, I was just thinking about this the other day, and I think some of us can relate to this, that, remember when if you're around my age, I'm 57, remember when Band-Aids came in tin cans, and other stuff came in like little tin cans, and for us, that was a big toy. a tin can. So, seriously, it was just, to me, I remember just sitting there looking at it thinking, this is interesting. But it wasn't funny then, not having enough toys. And I do believe, like I said, I'm not an expert on this, but I do believe that, kids need toys that, help with their imagination. Now, I do remember us getting one of those, what were they called? And we had an Etch-a-Sketch, what was the other one with the spirals, that you used a pen and you had all these things that, I don't know what you call it. Something-o-gram. Spiral something. Anyway, I found that fascinating as a child. But most of my toys, myself, I include myself in this one, they were not age appropriate. So, let's see. What else is that right here? Well, just as I said, the next were like the parents. And something the parents liked, like if a parent liked to play cards, and then they would teach those kinds of games to the children on how to play games that parents would play. Okay. Let's see. And also they teach you how to, some dysfunctional families, they teach people, when I say you, I don't mean you, it's just the way I do it, a bad habit. But they teach the children, how to play these games, but then they wouldn't let the children win. Okay, they might teach the children how to play football, basketball, kickball, softball, whatever, tetherball, but they wouldn't let the children win. As an adult who already knew the game, they wouldn't let the children win. Now, I think that's just wrong. I mean, in a way, it teaches a child to improve themselves. I see competition as that way. You don't need to compete against someone else. It's that you need to compete against yourself and improve yourself. Okay, and if you decide you're no good at it, you're no good at it. And be okay with that, Self-actualization. I'm not any good at that. Period. Okay? And there's no reason to feel bad about it. Nobody's good at everything. Although some people, like a little more narcissistic, think they're good at everything. Some of them. Okay. And also, I wrote down here, like when you get, a birthday present or just whatever toys you have that, or the person would have, that's a sibling or siblings would take it from that child. Okay, for themselves. Like if you have a child who's 2 or 3 years old, sure, an older child might, if something new, an older child might be interested in it because they had never seen it before themselves, and they might, find it interesting. But I'm talking about they take it and they steal it. They don't give it back. And that's quite dysfunctional, if you ask me. Read the disclaimer below this video on YouTube. I could be wrong, but no, I don't think it's on that one. Okay, now to move on to something I also want to talk about with school years. When a child from a dysfunctional family or just a dysfunctional society, let's say, social group, school, how they might experience school years. Okay. Now, back when I was in school, my school district, I don't remember any of the schools that from kindergarten, it was a private school, and then from there, public schools, and we didn't have middle school, we had junior high, so it was elementary, junior high, and high school. And back then, there was no such policy about no tolerance for bullying. We didn't have any of that. I really think I never heard even the term bully until I was an adult. The word bully. Maybe on TV one time, and it was like I hadn't heard anything ever about it. So, but when I was in school, it was quite often. It was like going every day, wondering who was going to be bullied, who was going to be made fun of. Was anybody going to make a mistake that other students would pick up and make fun of them about for the next however long until the next one happened? And they would earn a nickname, some kind of childish nickname that would stick to them, throughout school because of whatever had happened. And the kids are kids. They're not perfect. They're learning. They're just now coming into this world and learning new things and how even appropriate behaviors and socializing and all that, or how to pronounce things. But I remember people, I'm serious, too many students would jump on anything, any little thing to make fun of. And that was bad. That was really bad. And for anybody, it wasn't just certain people, it could be anybody, whether they were popular crowd or not. Anybody. It shouldn't be for anybody at all, period. But, that can be that kind of dysfunctional environment, dysfunctional system. And it wasn't one of these things where you'd hear parents talking about it. It was more like, well, it toughens you up. That which does not kill you only makes you stronger kind of attitude. And we're talking kids here. Kids all the way from, first, kindergarten. I don't think we had pre-K. All the way up to 12th. You just have to learn how to deal with it. And can't remember anybody saying that they were taught how to deal with bullying. Now, these are children. I remember hearing myself was fight your own battles, win your own wars. Children are looking for guidance in life, and they need to have that guidance in life. Okay, that's my view. Like I said, I'm not an expert on this topic, but anyway. Like if they did something wrong that was really wrong, according to the school, however they defined it, or the teacher, there was very harsh punishment back then. Now, I don't know if the kids these days still get paddled, but I've mentioned this in a video before. Back then they did, until something happened to a young girl and her family threatened to sue. It was in junior high, and that stopped it all where I grew up. No schools were allowed to paddle, and that stopped all of it. I think that needs to happen. I don't think any kids should be paddled, but they would make examples of kids. One little wrong thing, and it wouldn't be something worth that, and they make sure the whole school heard it. That was physical abuse, period. I'm not one to believe in spare the rod, spoil the child. It is not in the Bible. In fact, if you read even about sheep, you would find you don't even want to harm your sheep. Anyway, let's move on. And like I said, there was bullying. I'm looking at my notes here. And also there were bad teachers. I mean, I had a really bad one. I still remember to this day when I was in 5th grade. And she had her favorites. That's the type she was. And she had her favorites. And she made it well known that they were her favorites. And nobody else was in it. Everybody else was just beneath her. She was very much an elitist type. And if you weren't in that little group of hers, you were nothing. Seriously, no matter who it was, you were nothing. And she really, I don't think she really knew how to teach at all. I doubt that's the case too much anymore. Could be. Nobody, parents, teachers, for children, no matter what age, minors, they should not have favorites. Not at all. That can lead to a lifetime of negative, if you're not the favorite, a lifetime of that, of negative self-image. And for some, not all, okay, but for some. I think especially, I don't have any facts to this, but especially those who grew up in dysfunctional families, if the teachers also treated them that way. Okay, moving on. I'm losing my voice, by the way. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. I have allergies. It's 78 degrees, and it's September 3rd, 2020 at 2:10 p.m. Our flowers are blooming again. Lots of pollen. Anyway, within the school years, with that kind of thing going on, I truly believe it's difficult. It can be difficult for a child, teenager, whatever, for them to develop a sense of who they really are. If bullying is allowed, the teachers pick favorites. They have all this sense of, if you do anything wrong, you will be harshly punished for it. And like I said, bullying was allowed. So if somebody's a bully, sometimes they pick on something that is not really real, not really true about you. We all know that. People who are narcissistic and such, they can just come up with something, and you don't get to develop who you think you are, what you are, without having those what would you say? Maybe remembering what some other people said and what you were picked on about. Now, like I said, not everybody will do that. Some who are given a good upbringing to learn how to ignore what people like that say, what others like that say, because they are bullies. They might not develop that sense of, lowered sense of self. Their self-esteem would be where it should be. Not inflated, not deflated. And I'm sorry, I'm being watched again. Who's coming outside to try to do videos. I always have at least one neighbor watching me. Quite often. Yeah, it's been lessening lately, but and once you see me doing it once, yeah, you can question once. When it becomes months, you need to stop, really. I would go and say something to him, but no. Oh my goodness. Anyway, real life happens in the middle of a video. Okay, let's see what else I have here. Okay, I mentioned that about developing who you are, yet during so much chaos. Okay, it's difficult. And how many of us remember, basically, if you grew up in a dysfunctional family, that they would pick a child that was going to be the child that does everything good. If not, they're going to, there's strong punishment too. They have to be perfect in whatever the parent decides that child should be perfect in. Mine was I had to be perfect in school. Okay, I had to make hundreds. Everything had to be 100. And if there was extra, if I made 100 or 99, they would say, wasn't there any extra credit? Did you fail the extra credit? I'm not kidding. Oh boy. Maybe that's why I became a career student. Not really. I know it wasn't that, but I really want to know what I know, and I do. I insured myself. I know what I'm talking about. But sometimes, yeah, most of the time. It depends. If you hear me say, I'm not an expert, I'm not. Period. Just accept yourself, Okay, how about, let's see. And for some of us, I don't know if they still do this or not in schools. Like in high schools, high school for me was 9th through 12th grade. And we were allowed to, I don't remember now if it was just when we were juniors and seniors or what, but we were allowed to leave campus for our lunches. So I had a sibling that was a year and a grade above mine, so when she had a car before I had mine, no, it wasn't, it was every grade, 9th through 12th, because when she was a junior, she would take us all to lunch, and then whenever I got my car when I was 16, I took everybody, all my friends, we'd go to lunch. Okay, we were allowed to do that. I think that was good. Taught us responsibility. Taught us, you can go out, but you have to be back on time because your next class started exactly on time, and you had to be there. Okay, and that's good. Discipline is good in that kind of sense. But I'm not sure why I wrote here misfits under that. Misfits. I don't know. Maybe I was thinking that in the earlier years, how you see a lot of this on TV. I have seen a lot. Maybe not, you haven't, but I have. Like when they talk about kids in schools, how, when you sit at the lunch tables and everything in the cafeteria, and some wouldn't allow others to pick, especially new to the school system, to that school system in that district, at school. They wouldn't allow them to sit with them. That's a form of bullying, really. It's, you are not in our classes. It's a form of discrimination, plain and simple. So maybe that's what I meant with that. Okay. One more I wrote down here is that in school, you could be learning more about other types of families, family systems. And that might be the first time in a child's life, when they enter preschool, kindergarten, first grade, whatever it is, that they start to learn that if they're in a dysfunctional family, that's when they start to learn that their family is dysfunctional. A family that might be, these days with TV and so much else, we only had 3 channels when I was growing up, 3 TV channels. That's all you could get. We didn't have cable. Not that I'm aware of. And there was of course, no cell phone, no computer, none of that people use for, And so we didn't have much to learn from, outside of our own family or our neighbors. But I think that's when, really, for me, it was once I got into school, I learned more about other families, how they work. Now, we didn't have neighborhood kids, but really the parents back then, they never locked doors where I grew up until nighttime when everybody was asleep. They just left the doors open and the kids just go out and play. The parents weren't there to chaperone. So we didn't really learn that much about the parents of them. You see, we learned about the other kids, but the kids didn't talk about what their families do. They just went out and played. I mean, that's what it was for. It was a long recess after school. We'd go in and eat and then go back out until it turned dark. And then come in the house and, go to bed at some point. You see. But I think, that's how a lot of us learned about other types of families, and a lot of people learned, if their families were truly screwed up, was in school. Now, what the whole school system is screwed up, like I mentioned. And another one to go along with these school years, I wrote notes I have is about who you are and bullying. Well, I've already mentioned some of this. But basically I wrote, never learn to accept yourself as who you are and be comfortable with your flaws due to the taunting by other other kids. Yeah. None of us are perfect beings. None of us. And with all that taunting and everything, it would make it hard to develop. And I was thinking about this today, about how people who are pretty often, they haven't, some people say the narcissistic people have not grown up since whatever age, like 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever. The cluster Bs, narcissistic, histrionic, borderline, and antisocial. Different people say different things, okay? Now, I've known them. I've known the ones I've known, they have a narcissistic, histrionic blend. Some of them were actually diagnosed as borderline. None of them have been diagnosed as narcissistic or histrionic. But they don't. And they're real big with the taunting is a lot of name calling, like I said. Now, I'm not perfect. No, I'm not perfect with it. I have this thing for this current word somebody told me about, and every time I use it, I say, I shouldn't do that. That's immature. Okay, it's immature. It is. But to me, it fits it so perfectly. And that is COVIDiots. COVID idiots. Put together COVIDiots. And somebody told me that Dr. Phil had called somebody that. And I've seen memes about it too. And now, of course, it's gone from what it was originally, and it's been flipped over. The other side, I would say, uses it too. To talk, it's one of those, it's got to be a sides thing. If you're on this side or on that side, some people, they have to copycat as far as that, and they flip it. Anyway, but yeah, there was a lot of taunting. Like I said earlier, anybody could get taunted. Anybody could get Well, in some of those schools, and I know mine wasn't the only one, my school system, name called, and it stuck to you. Okay, let's see what else I wrote. Okay, I wrote too many see you, I don't have my readers on. Too many see you in different ways to decide who you are. Yeah, and I mean, we all have that looking glass self, and we get some ideas, from what we think that other people are thinking and how they're seeing us, and if they're sitting there just flat out saying they see us this way, yeah, some of it plays into it, how we see ourselves, but they don't see you in the same way you see yourself. Now, some people say that narcissistic people never, if anybody tells them they're wrong, no. To them, narcissistic people, they're never wrong. That's not what I'm talking about, though. It's when you're a child and you're trying to figure out your own, yourself, and you have so much taunting. Yeah, you see what I'm saying. Let's see. And I wrote this about afraid of making mistakes. Can you imagine if you went to a school like that? Any little thing, anything. If you sneeze wrong, there's going to be a harsh punishment. And so you develop into someone who's afraid of making mistakes. Some people would, maybe. Okay, afraid to stand out, minimize yourself, because of the same kind of reason. Some might, some wouldn't, some don't care. On and on. And then could develop some kind of anxiety for when it would happen again. If all the kids in the school, in your grade, in your classes, and your whatever, were so used to people just freely taunting, freely bullying one another. Any mistake is made. Like I said, if you sneeze, somebody's going to pick it up, make fun of that. You might, as a child might develop some anxiety and be afraid of sneezing or coughing or their voice cracks. Like mine is cracking. They're afraid of or making a mistake on a test because they're going to go home and, the parents can say, why did you miss a question? You should have studied more. And this kind of thing. Or the teacher could even be doing that. So, okay. And then the result for some might be, I wrote down here, that they become the good kid. The perfect little angels. Don't do anything wrong. And then there are those, as we all know, that the parents think they're perfect little angels when they're perfect little devils. Imperfect little devils, or they are devils. Little devils. And let's see, or some might make themselves into the wallflower. I did that when I was in was part of the time when I was in attending university, because I was diagnosed with panic disorder, and I had it really bad until and I'm saying this is not a solution for everybody. It's not the cause for everybody, but until I got put on medication for insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, I had really bad panic attacks. Once that happened, it was like night and day difference. Nah, I was fine. I was no longer the wallflower. I wasn't the histrionic either, but I was no longer the wallflower. Yeah, but some kids might do that. They want to be quiet because they don't want to be picked on. And it's going to class every day, that when they have to go to class, could be that bad. It's like walking into that kind of zone, the taunting zone, the teasing zone, and just very, very dysfunctional. So, anyway, I think that's enough for this one. I got the next ones I have a stack just on dysfunctional family systems and such. It's mainly about siblings, it seems like. Like I said, I wrote these quite a while ago, months ago, and more on the favorites. I already did some on favorites, but this is when it becomes an adult. When a person becomes an adult. I've done a lot of videos on dysfunctional family systems. And let's see, more on adult siblings, and these are to come at some point. And then about going no contact. Okay, but there's more. Much more. Oh man, I remember sitting down writing a whole bunch of notes over days, weeks, I don't know, on this topic. My pen was just flying. Seriously, I had to put it that way. But it was, because so many thoughts were coming to my head about this topic. And over the years I've done them here and there, but I wanted to sit down and try to do it from from early childhood on to around my age and older. Okay? These things that happen can cause a lifetime of issues for a person. Physically, it has caused me a lifetime of issues because I developed an adrenal disorder when I was very young, probably, I would say maybe 2 or 3 years old, and I didn't know it until I was 30-something years old. I'm losing my voice. Can you hear it going out and going higher and going lower? Bad. But anyway, these can cause a lifetime of problems. And so I'm going to go through these. If I don't have too much more trouble with technology, I've said this in the more recent videos, even if this one will allow me to upload it, I'm serious. I did one I should say this. I did one just specifically on all the more recent issues I've had. It wouldn't let me update it. It wouldn't let me upload it. And no, I tried so many times, and it was quite hilarious to me, really, that here it is, a video about the troubles I had with that, and it wouldn't let me upload. Finally I did, but I had to put it on a different channel, and then it let me upload it there. It's weird, don't you think? I don't think that that's a YouTube thing. I don't know why. Maybe it was just chance. Finally it was going to let me upload it, and probably chance, so I decided to try a different channel. But hopefully this one will, because I don't want to have to go through trying to I don't want to go through talking about these again and again and trying to upload it again and again. Probably will. And I have to wait until after Adam gets off of work, which could be late at night because he works from home. And I mentioned all those troubles that it'll bump him off. Only my cell phone and his cell phone. And it has something to do with 911, that the cell phone has to have the Wi-Fi be in position number 1. Any cell phone has to be in position number 1 and 2. If there's 2 of them, if it's 1, it's just 1 position to be able to call 911. Okay. And if anything else is in that position and the phone suddenly goes on Wi-Fi, it knocks that person off of Wi-Fi. Whatever that person or that device off of number 1 spot. You see what I'm saying? Kind of weird, but yeah, we verified it more than once, and that took hours. Anyway, I think that's enough for now. Let's see if it uploads like this, or if I wind up having to transfer it to my the voice with a PowerPoint background onto my inside computer desktop. All right, enough for now. Talk to you in another video.